is going on, Whisper Nation? Great to have you with us here on Friday, January 7th, 2022 for the Week 17 News and Notes episode, last week of the NFL season. That means you are playing for a championship or you are just watching for fun, but I'm going to be having some fun here with my co-hosts here. Let's bring them to the show. We got, of course, the one and only Johnny Game Time Hicks, a.k.a. The Jawline. Good to have you with my brother, and Big Travie in the flesh. Off of that bubble wrap, says Scott over here, man. It is so good to have you. That's my dude. Great to have you both. Well, I know we're jumping right into it. Happy New Year to you guys. Happy New Year to Whisper Nation. Congratulations if you're playing for a championship. Condolences if you are not. And I know that we here, at least in the Fantasy Whispers Listeners League, none of us made it to that championship, but we had such a stacked cast, such a great team over here, and shout outs to the Cat's Pajamas for taking it home, and another shout out there to Jacob Bley for coming in second place. Not easy to do in a 16-teamer.
No, well, and then you had Jacob Bley though sneaking his way in though to next year's Listener League still, because he won the best ball number one. Yeah, he won the bet, so that's pretty wild. He won the best ball tournament number one, so he'll be in. And then so did our guy Easy Daddy. Easy Daddy won the other one that we did last year, so those
nice.
And yeah, so we have TCP,
the Cat's Pajamas,
the Cat's Pajamas, Easy Daddy, and Jacob Bley.
Well, correction.
Sorry, Jay Blizzy. Jay Blizzy. Jay Blizzy.
Jay Blizzy was the.
Say Jacob Bley.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so 2020. Jay Blizzy won, he won, and Josh, he won then. 2021 was Cat's Pajamas, but Jay Blizzy's not out. He's going to get back in because he won that best ball tournament, as Johnny was putting out there.
Nice.
So he's staying within the Listener League. He says, I'm going to try and come back and get that title. I'm excited to formulate the Listener League for next year. And
maybe get a little
bit, maybe get my own squad.
Yeah.
Here.
I
think I do. I think I want my own squad. I'm going to talk to my agent here, and I get it done here.
Personally would love to see you guys not split up in terms of picking your team, because well, I won't say it out loud. Why I love it when you
it's hard. It's hard playing.
Conflicting opinions. Yeah, it's really hard.
Conflicting opinions coming together to make this like squad that I don't know if you guys are both happy with the way it ended up.
No.
I
mean, we were happy that we didn't come in last. That's what we were happy about.
For sure.
Yeah, obviously, I think there's a lot of things that come to play there. Conflicting waiver wire pickups, conflicting trades that are, could have been made possible. All these different things, but it'll be exciting next year. I'm excited for Whisper Nation to get in here. All the different ways that you can get in. Obviously, the raffles through Patreon. So if you're not subscribed over on Patreon, make sure you do so. Get over to patreon.com/the Fantasy Whispers, or that link is in the description. We're not stopping at all. I mean, this train is keep on moving, right, guys? We've got a lot of stuff down the pipeline, just not only for the NFL playoffs, but we were talking. Been brainstorming this week about content all season long. So I'm really excited about that, Austin, Johnny, just to jump into some of these things that we'll get into.
And I want to shit out there right now while we got Whisper Nation's ear on that subject. We've got some really, really exciting plans in place, and the wheels have already been put in motion. But if there's any type of off-season content you especially like listening to, consuming, are curious about, throw us that our way. We pour a lot of love into this work, and if there's something that is of particular interest or curiosity to you, let us know. It'll probably resonate with us as well. But right now, we know some players are still getting ready. They're still playing this season. Some people aren't in roundabout wrap up. Let's take a look back. They're trying to win this week. Hector coming in. Start Lance, please, Shanahan, and say bye. Jimmy, thanks for being a 49er. Yeah, Brett Johnson, what's up, man? Congratulations.
Yeah,
also to Brett Johnson, back-to-back League of Record champion, not without controversy, which has been pretty exciting. Man. He's not going to like to hear say that, but we know there's a ton of people who started the Bills defense in both Sleeper and the NFL app, and you might be wondering if the score reflected is accurate at the end. And we've been following up with the analytics and the data providers for these platforms, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. So we'll see what's going on there. Keep a tune out for next week on this.
Controversy, says Brett Johnson here. It's definitely there. It's definitely there, but I don't think Brett Johnson was. He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. I have the championship now. So I don't know.
No controversy for him though.
Yeah, no controversy.
he'd like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
But well, let us know if you know what we're talking about in this Whisperation. But we're jumping into some of the news and notes because it's week 17. No, it's week 18 now, right?
Week 18. Week 18.
We've never said that before.
No,
for
we
regular
never
season.
said it
No.
before. No, never.
I love how they're spinning it too, like NFL and CBS and all these all these channels are like the season finale. You know, like the season. They've never called it that before, but they're like trying to. I think because a lot of games are locked up in this last week, so they're trying to push for like a marketing thing. But it's been pretty funny. Like on the season finale of the NFL.
Yeah,
you know,
they have a lot of the games playing at the same time because of that. They're like, I know the Cardinals and the Rams game because there's still some things up in the air with that one. So it's like, that's why they have that game going on at the same time. Yeah. There's a couple of other ramifications that could happen based on the results this weekend. So yeah, it is going to be like a season finale, but it's going to be kind of wild because a lot of players are going to be out.
Well, the Sunday night football game, huge implications in that one. Chargers, Raiders. Winner of that basically is in the dance, and loser is out unless
you're out. The floor.
Colts beat the Jags. This is the wild scenario. If the Jags beat the Colts, then both the Chargers and the Raiders can tie and both make it in.
And there's no incentive for them to play. Like if you're trying to get in the playoffs, just kneel it out like 100 times a pop, and you're in the playoffs.
It'd be funny if they played up until like the last 2 minutes of the game and then messed with each other to try and figure out a way to tie or something.
Have you heard any? And you think they're going to do anything weird? Are they going to go out and like actually play football? Like, well,
you know how those coaches are. They're not they're not speaking about any of that until something happens. So the Jags would have to beat the Colts. We'll deal with
I doubt that. I doubt that's going to happen.
But that could happen. So we'll see.
Why is this, Brett? Why does he want the Colts to lose so bad?
Just to see that scenario. I think
just to make it more.
He wants to see that scenario play out. Force their hand, so to speak. Yeah.
God, I want that too.
To play us out. What does that even mean? What does that mean? To play us out?
Would you make that call and just say like, guys, we're going to tie? Like, would you?
No, that's so hard to do. No, you go out there and play.
I mean, I'd call the coach. Would you call the coach and be like, hey, man? What do we?
I mean, I think I like to lead with transparency anywhere I go, and it's like, yo, I know what we're both thinking about.
Let's talk about it. Let's see what we would say here.
I mean,
let's see what we do.
But realistically, why? Because if they don't get in,
Brett Johnson, I'd love a primetime game of Neil's. NFL would lose it.
No, dude, it'd be the most watched. It'd be the most watched game like of all time. It would end up being. They should do that. Like if they want to get if they want their name to be ringing through the entire world conversation for like a good 3 days.
Well, I think what it kills here is their 18-game season, or it doesn't kill it, but it really shines a light on like, look at how much weirdness came out of pushing it out another game. Like you got a team that could basically tie to get in.
Oh, because now we don't have that extra game now creates more scenarios where like a double tie.
Well, look at how much of everything's locked up. I guess this happens every year in week 17, but I was going to say, look how everything's locked up, and then this tie actually creates a situation where both teams could get in on a tie.
I've never heard of one like this.
Right?
Have you?
No.
I don't know if it's directly connected to the extended season or not, but it's the first year we've had an extended season, and it's the first time I've ever heard.
Yeah. NFL's telling the refs in that Colts-Jags game, like, make sure the Colts win this game. All right,
we'll see. I'm excited to see that one. I'm excited to see that one play out. And we're going to jumping into some of these news and notes here because people are still making fantasy lineups, and we gotta jump into it. So, boys, you ready to jump into the Arizona Cardinals section? All right. Yeah. So, notable player here, Chase Edmonds, up and down a little bit. He's going to be out this week. Fire up James Conner, but temper expectations a little bit because he did remain limited for Thursday's practice. Did get back-to-back limited days. He's on track to suit up. Is there any hesitation or reason why you wouldn't be smashing James Conner here, even on a not totally healthy body?
Against Seahawks, like you're definitely playing him if he plays. In my opinion.
I think so too on this one. And moving on here to the Atlanta Falcons, Kyle Pitts is going to be questionable against the Saints here in Week 18. He would have likely been ruled out if there weren't only 59 receiving yards shy of getting Mike Ditka's single season record for a rookie tight end. So we've got some milestone things here to pay attention to. Kyle Pitts has got one of those. Travis, do you think he ends up going for it and makes it?
I would like to think that he goes for it, and if he does, I'd imagine they're going to be peppering him. I mean, they've been peppering him. He's just kind of their whole focal point in the receiving game for sure. And this is just like fits the bill for our guy Kyle Pitts. Came in as the unicorn, was heavily touted. We probably drafted him too high, as we talked about in the offseason. But again, he's putting up the numbers you'd like to see in a rookie. As far as like he's gonna get at least second in yardage as a rookie as a tight end, and that's one of the biggest like measuring sticks when we look at rookie tight ends is where were they at in yardage. If we look at like Kittle in his rookie year, higher yardage, some of these guys that break out. So that's a good measuring stick there. And I'm really excited for Pitts' future here. If you got him in Dynasty, if you're looking at him for next year, I think there's a lot of things to like about Kyle Pitts.
You have an interesting point there of drafting him maybe a little bit too early, but like where he was drafted and finished was kind of like right around, like you could say that you drafted Hawkinson too early, right? Because of all the weird stuff, but his talent and the situation still played out kind of how we thought it would, just not all the way. And that was what kind of happened for a lot of the tight ends. So my question I'm getting to is, did we just draft all tight ends too early?
Well, at least in that middle chunk, right? Yeah, I mean, especially Darren Waller, obviously, with the injury stuff. But, like, I think if we look at, like, some of the middle chunk of tight ends, and Johnny's talked about this for a couple years now, it's like you might as well punt it after you get past that tier, because then if you go and you can get some of the later guys like a Gesicki or some of these guys that pop off and go, pretty high up there. We targeted as Higbee as a guy. It just never really happened. But those are the guys we're looking at in the bottom half, because if they can rise up into that other tier, then the return on investment is so much greater than getting a guy like Hawkinson or Pitts.
What's really wild is there were 12 tight ends this year that scored over 150. Well, I mean, yeah. We talk about like 150 fantasy points is quite significant for tight ends. Like usually tight ends only score about 100, right?
This is PPR.
Yeah, this is PPR. So, so the fact that like 100, you've got 12 scoring 150 plus is pretty significant. But going back to what Big Trav was saying originally about Kyle Pitts is like, we kept having this debate on like, are we drafting him too? And it was just like, it ended up being right, like right where he should have been drafted. So that's always nice. But yeah, it'll be cool if he gets this record. They're saying they could just try to get him the record quickly and then get him out of the game. So that's a little bit concerning.
Not to go too much into tight end philosophy here, Austin, but if we look at it like Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, top 2, right? And then all these other guys and obviously Kelce or Kittle got up there, but he was injured as well. But all these other guys we're talking about that really made the splash sexy plays for us down, in this season at different times. Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, Mike Gesicki, Zach Ertz, these were all different situations. We weren't drafting them anywhere near where we were drafting Hawkinson, Pitts, Waller, so it's just another thing that like the revolving door and the volatility at the position means that there's going to be a bunch of other guys here to take a look at each and every year.
I guess my kind of question on the Kyle Pitts assessment too is who else was around in his ADP outside of the tight end position? Would it have been better to pick up one of these streaming tight ends and get yourself like a wide receiver 2, an RB 3 or 4, probably?
Probably.
Yeah.
We'll find that when we look at the numbers for sure.
Yeah, because I could guarantee you for a fact, Cooper Kupp and Deontay Johnson were 2 wide receivers that you were drafting right where Kyle Pitts was going, and you were better off. Hindsight's always.
I see how you threw Deontay Johnson in the same breath as Cooper Kupp there. I saw what you did there, Johnny. I know what you're trying to do.
They're both top 10 wide receivers.
Okay, all right. Yeah. I'm on to you.
What?
Couple wide receiver ones.
Deontay is PPR.
I know Deontay's good. I'm just giving you a hard time.
I could have thrown DJ Moore out there, but then nobody would have acknowledged that one.
I guess this is probably a good question. Like, actually, I'm gonna put it down here in my trusty book on this one for
good afternoon.
For some analysis, actually looking back and seeing some of these players, like a Kyle Pitts, for instance, how we're like, not bad, but didn't necessarily make the same kind of impact. And then like, okay, Johnny, you just brought up a couple of wide receivers that you would have obviously liked to have more than Kyle Pitts, Cooper Kupp, no duh. And then Deontay Johnson for sure as well. But then how many other misses? Because there's a lot more wide receivers than there are tight ends. And you brought up DJ Moore. Like maybe you would have still rather had Kyle Pitts over DJ Moore, given like, a little bit of a bummer over there. So like, percentage wise, I wonder how many hits at other positions were around there and hits at the tight end percentage wise.
That's that gets me on a whole other tangent here. We go really wild here. But if we look at like guys that missed games or like didn't hit like on a certain week by week basis, right? Like if you wanted to have DJ Moore over Kyle Pitts, but then you look at DJ Moore's season and he had weeks 4, 6, and 8, let's say, where he had bad games. I'd love to see the percentages of how many people started DJ Moore in that and how many lineups were, maybe were costed because of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the trade-off value to get DJ Moore, really, it looks like good on season long, on paper, but maybe not necessarily given the lineup and who you would have actually started.
There's going to be definitely a lot of fun things for us to jump into in the offseason. And Whisper Nation, if you are just tuning into us for the first time and you enjoy this take on football and fantasy football here, consider liking and subscribing to this channel because we're going to be pumping out the content all season long and a lot of points for different analyses and conversations at all the different various parts of fantasy football and fantasy sports in general. Moving on here to the Baltimore Ravens, where familiar quarterback now, Tyler Huntley, he's going to get the start again in Week 18. Lamar Jackson is just not able to shake that ankle. Tyler Huntley, we've been excited about him, Johnny, but he had a little bit of a disappointing week, I would argue, against the Rams there. 197 yards, 1 interception, 6 attempts on the ground for 54 more yards, but 11.28 fantasy points. That's not really going to get it done. Are you steering folks away from starting Huntley this week as kind of like a flyer QB start against Pittsburgh, or do you like what Huntley has still been about, even though there was a disappointing game? Because we've seen what he could do. Green Bay 40 points there in that matchup, fantasy wise.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing is, we were telling people pump the brakes last week going against the Rams. Huntley was not the greatest start. I still think in a 2-quarterback league, I think you still can throw him out there, especially against Pittsburgh, who is, they've been susceptible to pass and to quarterback. So I do still think that you could roll him out maybe more in a super flex league. And he has that low end QB1 kind of range because of the ability to scramble and whatnot. But I think what you really saw, and like this goes to case in point, for future, another thing Awesome might have already written down in his planner there, is that when quarterbacks are coming out, these ones that, you don't really necessarily know or have a lot of footage on, that first game, like, don't be surprised if they go off, because there's not a lot of like, teams don't necessarily know what to game plan for. But then once they have the footage or some kind of game plan built around that player, then it becomes much more difficult. So it's just something to take note of in the future, that maybe we shouldn't necessarily read too much into, like, these quarterbacks that are having these one good start and then,
I like that take.
There's a little bit of that. I mean, that wasn't his first game that he went off against Green Bay. The first two games he played were other teams. I think the bigger thing for Huntley is 40 more.
Green Bay was the first game that Lamar went down. No,
he played against Chicago a couple weeks prior when Lamar missed.
Yeah, he had 36 pass attempts against Chicago there. He had 10 fantasy points.
And then he went down, and then Lamar went down early in the Cleveland game. So he got a lot more run in the Cleveland game too. So
38 pass attempts that game.
Yeah, so... But I do agree with you. Most times you're right. Like we saw that with like an RG3, let's say, or like some of these guys that take the league by storm, and then they adjust film wise on that.
Yeah.
But I will say that 40 or more rushing yards for Huntley in all of his starts or in all the games that he got in. So I'm definitely like interested in Huntley, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Huntley going forward. He seems to be a perfect backup for this offense.
Yeah. I swear he looks so much like Lamar when he's in there.
Yeah.
Like, I'll turn on the TV and I know it's not Lamar, but I'm like, that's a move Lamar would make.
Right.
And that's a throw that Lamar would make. So it's like, yeah, he's a great backup.
Yeah, good for the Ravens.
As far as this week, it does seem a little bit sketchy this week, especially with TJ Watt. That line's had issues. TJ Watt going for the sack record, just a lot of stuff.
That's going to be exciting.
I think Pittsburgh really brings the house at him.
Yeah, I think you're right on this one. So, I mean, it's worth a consideration in Superflex categories, but, let us know if you're thinking of Huntley or somebody else in that kind of category. Moving over here to the Buffalo Bills, Emmanuel Sanders, he's doubtful for week 18. Probably weren't starting him anyways, but it's good to know. Maybe a little bit of a bump up for the other pass catchers. Bump down, though, I'm going to say, for Zach Moss, as Joe Buscaglia said that Moss is no threat to Devin Singletary as Buffalo's lead back. Is it finally happening, Travis? Last week, 23 rush attempts, 110 yards, 2 touchdowns for Devin Singletary. I've been talking a little bit about him on this show all season long, how it might not look awesome eye to eye, but like metrics have all been looking really strong, actually. And the more opportunity he gets, the more production he has. Is this the fire Devin Singletary up? Is this a new era over there in Buffalo, Trevi?
Yeah, I think you could get him in here this week, especially against the Jets. We know what they are against the running back, absolutely porous. So I think that's a fine start this week, especially in your championship. If you're riding with Singletary, it's because you've had issues at running back. Who hasn't? So you're going to get him in there and do that. I think what the more interesting take here is what happens next year. If Singletary rounds out this year and with a strong playoff push, where are we drafting Singletary next year? And can he hold up as the lead back next year, or do they get somebody else in, or what happens with Buffalo's offense and all that stuff? I feel like he's going to be a trap where he's going to be a guy that we see a lot of good things down the stretch here from. People get reinvigorated by him because remember, people liked him coming out of college as a rookie. So I think he's somebody we'll probably overdraft next year. But maybe that's just a nihilist in me.
I think it might be on this one because he's already overcome something significant in Zach Moss. Like Zach Moss was the dude. Think about how much we loved him, how much hype he got. Singletary hung around and has earned that job head and shoulders now above Zach Moss. And his metrics coming into this year looked really good. And looking over the last couple of weeks with Devin Singletary, I mean, 23 points last week, 16, 16, 11 points going back the month of football here. So like he's had a solid time. And anytime Devin Singletary has been given actual like attempts, like he does good work.
Yeah. Touchdowns in 3 straight, including 2 last week. Definitely hot right now, and nothing hotter than playing the Jets as a running back this week. So really, look at who else had these kind of seats. Like just to last year, we saw Jonathan Taylor go a little bit. Obviously, this isn't to that level. Jonathan Taylor, Dave Montgomery, Derrick Henry, these guys go nuts late in the year, and then where are we drafting them next year? So he's a case to look at as a guy that probably solidified at least getting the first crack at the job next year.
I think and I mean, Travis, you touched on it real quick, but I mean, looking at his game logs, really, the big jump, the reason why he's all of a sudden become a decent starter, he's getting the goal line work. He's got 4 touchdowns in 3 games, heavily elevating. Touchdowns are important, right? But before, I mean, he had 2 touchdowns all season before then. So it's the information about Zach Moss is very important because the Zach Mosses of the world were taking the upside away from Singletary because Singletary was the between the 20s guy who's getting the yardage. But if you're not getting touchdowns or have that ability, then it really hinders your upside. Well, now they started to upload that. So I think it is going to be an interesting case, talking about where he's going.
James Robinson, is he like slightly like a James Robinson kind of story?
Is he a Miles Gaskin?
Yeah, well,
maybe he's in between those two.
You're talking about red zone inside the 20 rushing attempts. These are the guys that he's up there with. Aaron Jones, who had 32, they tied. Cordarrelle Patterson has 31 on the year. Obviously, injuries play into a factor into this. Miles Gaskin, 31. So this is around where, he's definitely jumped up. And as to Johnny's point, they started using him in the red zone, and he has, benefited in the last stretch here. So gonna be very interesting where we project.
It'll be a fun topic for sure.
Yeah, he's gonna be like one of those unsexy plays. Like if you get him as your RB3 or something, and then watch he ends up being like the RB15 with some like pop tweets.
Poor man's Montgomery was this year as far as ADP and stuff.
I
think we're gonna look at him like that because we put Taylor all the way in the first round, and we said no, we need to discount Montgomery. We can't draft him that high coming into last year. I think you'll discount Singletary even more just because of the nature of the offense. And Josh Allen's always going to be a threat to run in red zone, looks. But I think Singletary is going to have some real value as one of those guys who could be an upstart guy.
I think it'll probably be that 5th, 6th round dead spot for the running backs. And it's going to be a debate. I think it's going to be fun to see where he ends up going. But that is a very good point that I never really – like, where does Singletary end up going? And because if he's like one of those 8th rounders, like the Tampa Bay backfield was this year, where it's like, okay, then I think I'm pretty interested in taking Singletary, like you said, as my RB3 upside. Because if he continues to get the red area work, then that's valuable on this offense. So yeah, I'm really excited. I know we have some other teams to get into, but I just want to point this out. I think we now know that Josh Allen did not make it to the championship last week in his fantasy league because Dawson Knox, just 2 targets in their win against the Falcons last week. So, if Josh Allen was in that championship game, he has Dawson Knox, he would have just lit him up.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption on there. Moving over from the Buffalo Bills now, just touching on the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton's going to be getting the start. Justin Fields has COVID, so adjust your lineups accordingly. More notably, though, over in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, we're not expecting him to play in Week 18 with that knee. He said it's more sore. But he felt healthy enough to play if needed, which is good news for the Bengals. You like to see that. Jamar Chase said, or Zach Taylor said on Jamar Chase, there's a chance he's going to play in Week 18 against the Browns. He's 12 yards away from breaking the team's single-season receiving yardage record, 1,440 yards, set by Chad Johnson back in 007. So that 266-yard week last week for Jamar Chase really helped get him closer to that milestone. I got to think, like, you're a rookie. These kinds of things matter. You reference it. You build your story. You build your confidence. You build like a lot of things on these points. We like to pretend they don't matter. You know, we talk about Johnny and I are Suns fans. Devin Booker's 70-point game and a losing effort against the Celtics. So that like ends up factoring into who he is as a player and the way the league views him. And I think that Jamar Chase could really benefit from snagging this record. I think Zach Taylor knows that too. I think he's probably in, right, Johnny? Or am I just too excited about the storyline?
Yeah, he's probably in. You would hope, you know, a lot of these records are in place, and you see teams try to, you know, get them the ball or hit these bonus things. That's partially why the whole AB situation was what it was because AB was so close to getting that bonus. He needed 55 more receiving yards and like 5 more receptions, and he would have got that bonus. That's why he complained about the amount of targets in that game in the first half. And then AB was like, or Bruce Arians like, no, you're sitting then, you know, like, so you see coaches and in those good teams, you know, building good cultures, try to get their guys. Quarterbacks try to get their guys these bonuses. So I do expect him to play. But again, this is going to be one of those things where it's like he hits it, and then do they say, all right, you got it, you're out now. We don't want to risk you getting injured. That's the downside to things like this. And
I don't know if you guys talked about it when I hopped off, but Burrow is a questionable tag in this, right? So it's like if he doesn't go, like how more likely is, you know, Chase to even get that too? The other thing, you know, like they'll know. I think they're waiting on the Chiefs game, because if the Chiefs lose, then they have another out to get the number 1 seed. So I think that's what they'll base a lot of. Like if the Chiefs win, then they'll, even if Tennessee loses to Houston, then Cincinnati wouldn't even get the number 1 seed. So I think they might end up resting guys. And if Burrow doesn't go, they'll probably Chase is more likely to play, I think, if that scenario happens, in my mind.
12 yards?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we're going to force it to you. We don't even care about this game.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it would probably be, that's the concern, is like, yes, Chase is in. He only needs 12 yards. They, you know, first 2 plays of the game, they go to him, get him the first down, and get him 13. And then it's like, all right, you're out. Yeah, and then that's going to be the problem.
Yeah, another problem for the Bengals is Joe Mixon. He's got COVID. He's going to be out this week as well. Plan accordingly. Yep. Moving on now to the Cleveland Browns. Running back Nick Chubb. He's going to play in Week 18. He's got a rib issue, but he don't care. He's going to be out there. Baker Mayfield, though, won't. He's going to have a surgery done to repair his torn labrum in his non-throwing shoulder. Prayers up for him. We've also got David Njoku here. He didn't practice on Wednesday. It's a new injury for him. Played a bunch of snaps last week, 72% compared to Austin Hooper's 49%. So we might see a little bit of a shift over there in that deep tight end situation in Cleveland. But I guess any fantasy pieces you're particularly excited for, Travi, or how are you interpreting this news? Baker being out, does this shift any of the pass catchers in your mind from a start-sit perspective?
I'd be kind of dicey to roll out any of these guys. Is Case Keenum good to go? He'd be their backup, right? I think he's ready to rock in there. It'd be interesting to see if the passing game gets elevated. But as far as if you're playing right now, you're playing for a championship, so it's not something I really want to invest in. As far as like maybe Landry on the wide receiver 3-4 borderline, you could get in there. But I think as far as like trying to guess the tight end with Keenum in there, trying to guess some of these other situations, I wouldn't want a part of that.
Yeah, me neither. Moving over to a team that you might want a little bit more of a part of in the Dallas Cowboys, as Mike McCarthy said that Dallas is going to play to win when asked about resting his starters in Week 18. Didn't outright say Dak Prescott and company will play, but McCarthy did add he wants to establish some momentum heading into the playoffs. That's good news for your playmakers. Obviously, got to mention that Michael Gallup suffered a clean ACL tear. Very sorry to hear about that news. Glad it was a better tear than a worse tear. But that's really throwing some sugar on some shit.
Because he's a free agent. He's a free agent at the end of the. I mean, it's kind of good news for Dallas, right? Because they're going to have some salary cap issues. So it's like Michael Gallup might take now a 2-year deal with Dallas. It's slightly less money, but he knows he's going to be sitting right next to CeeDee Lamb, and like Amari Cooper could be gone next year. So yeah, it's sad for him because he probably just missed out on a big contract.
Cedric Wilson is going to be filling in. Caught 6 of 6 targets last week, 35 yards and a tutty, filling in that slot spot. So I'm not recommending starting him. Guys, tell me if you disagree, but if you need a deep play, maybe a DFS value pickup, Cedric Wilson should be someone to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
I agree.
All right, Denver Broncos. Drew Lock, quarterback, was limited in practice on Wednesday. Took a hard hit to his throwing shoulder there in week 17. Left for a few drives, but came back. It looks like he's going to be playing after a couple of limited sessions. Teddy Bridgewater was put on the injured reserve. Wish the best for you. We got Jerry Jeudy coming back, COVID list. This has been such we've liked the running backs out of Denver. We like the talent at the wide receiver positions. We don't like starting the wide receivers out of Denver, though. Talent is awesome. Yeah, talent alone doesn't get you points. Even with Drew Lock in there, banged up and everything, this play style just doesn't seem like it's going to be friendly to your fantasy lineups unless you got one of those running backs going. Is that right?
Very similar to Cleveland. I mean, it's almost identical situation to Cleveland, where we don't really want much of the passing game, but we'll take the running backs for sure.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moving over to Detroit, where the Lions quarterback Jared Goff is probable for week 18, according to Dan Campbell. Remember, he's dealing with a knee issue, missed the last couple of games. Tim Boyle's been filling in there. Looks like we're going to have Jared Goff back. I don't really think it makes a big impact for any of the players. Johnny, tell me if you disagree on this one, but DeAndre Swift, we're expecting a similar role to his week 17 usage this weekend. And I think we could probably expect similar usage out of this late season pop-up here in Amon-Ra St. Brown, who had like his 5th really. I mean, is he like the number 1 wide receiver in the league?
He's the only one I'm starting in this whole team. I'll be honest with you. I'm not even starting DeAndre Swift. No, because this is ridiculous. Comes out last week. Oh, fresh legs, full workload. That's what we're getting tweets from insiders, beat reporters. Oh, DeAndre Swift returning. He's good to go. Good for healthy action. Oh, what did that lead to? Six touches on 57% of the snaps. Come on. Who's your best player? This is ridiculous.
I don't know. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's is their best player,
that's
dude.
What's absurd. It's like,
definitely got the best name.
He's the only one I'm playing. He's the only guy that you could trust because you see, every healthy, best player. No, doesn't matter. They're going to,
It doesn't matter.
I'm only concerned with Amon right now because he is
11 or more targets in 5 straight games. Austin, Amon-Ra St. Brown is absolutely dealing right now. And to your question, is he probably the number 1 wide receiver in points scored over the last month? I don't know how he couldn't be right now. The Chase game obviously is going to be a big buoy for Chase, so I think he might be up there. We'll have to look this up. But I just think we were talking about Singletary's end of the year push. Now double that up and talk about where we're going to be taking Amon-Ra St. Brown next year as far as redraft. Not a lot's going to change for Detroit. Like Amon-Ra St. Brown is who we thought he was coming into the year. He just did it way late in the year.
Hold on.
Take a quick second on this one. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, let me, because here I do have a really a serious question on this. I have a buddy who he was showing me his dynasty lineup last weekend, and he has Amon was one of the guys that he had drafted last year, and popped off and is really kind of and he said something to me that was I didn't expect it, but then it got me thinking. And he's like, "What are your thoughts on trading Amon this offseason due to the fact that he has blown up so much, and now people are excited about him?" And the fact that he's doing this with Swift injured and Hawkinson injured. So he is getting all those targets right now because nobody else is there. So, but it's not to say that I think he's a terrible person, a terrible football player, or he's not going to be good. But what do you guys think about possibly taking what we've seen over, because he is, he's been a top 12 for sure. I know that. I've seen that stat. He's definitely been a top 12 over the last month. I can't tell you exactly. I want to say it was like top 8. So it's like his value right now. Do you think he's ever going to be a top 8 wide receiver again during a stretch?
No, but I don't think you're going to have to draft him there. That's the point.
I'm not talking about redraft. I'm talking about if you were in Dynasty are you looking? Is this the time? Is it a smart move? Because when he said that to me, I was like, honestly, that's not a if you pair him with another player, you can get a really nice piece for your dynasty roster. Or do you really believe that this is going to be what he's like moving forward, and he could be a top 15 receiver from here on out?
I've got Amon-Ra in my dynasty setup, and he helped me out a lot in this week, and I like looking at him pretty straight, and like, there's a couple of interesting factors playing for Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is not the most physically gifted wide receiver of the bunch. There's a reason why he went in the 4th round. There's also a reason why he was so dominant at USC and was such a leader in so many fashions over there in USC. If you look at this guy's pedigree in terms of the family he comes from and what their values had been and how diligent they were, his dad's a former Mr. Universe. His mom, like, they're all very accomplished people. They grew these kids in like a lab type of setting. The dude speaks 4 languages. They're all named after Egyptian gods. Like, it's a very, very thoughtful construction to these kids' lives, and it's like it's hit. It seems like it's pretty natural. It's not all the way like Equanimeous St. Brown. He's like been a cut candidate for the Packers, but then he stays around. He does what he does. Amon-Ra's kicking ass. He looks good, but I don't think he's going to be this good, because why would he be? This is elite. This is like elite. Travis, you're talking 10 plus targets, crazy numbers. This is like Cooper Kupp numbers that Amon-Ra has brought in. He's just not that physically gifted of a player. He would need several scenarios to work out for him, but I think he's so reliable of a person and a player and a teammate and all that stuff that they're going to find reasons to keep him heavily included. I see like a Julian Edelman type, where this guy is going to have these stretches where he's heavily leaned on, gets it done, but you're still looking to bring in a Randy Moss, like, if you can, you know what I mean? But you have him there. He's super reliable. You can go to him at any point in time. He's an overachiever, but if you can get somebody who's like a physical freak, that's what you'd want to find there as well. So I think he's a better Golden Tate. I think he's a Julian Edelman. I think he's going to be a really strong, consistent play, especially in PPR. But to Johnny's question, if you could get like a real wide receiver one who's in a similar role but more physically gifted, I would put serious consideration into going that direction.
Like, because in this example, he had also Zeke on his dynasty roster, and he's like, I'm thinking about pairing Zeke and Amon and trying to get a pick and then a really good player. And I was like, I think you could definitely do that. And because look at this, when you talk about, real quick, I know we want to move on, but basically up until that Chicago game, so we know that was when Swift went out, right? And Hawkinson went out a couple weeks later after that. But basically before that, when Swift and Hawkinson were on the field, Amon didn't, even in a half PPR league, he didn't eclipse more than 10 fantasy points all season. And then after Swift came out and then Hawkinson, that is when he really started to see his targets go from, 4 to 6 a game with a high of 8 targets to all of a sudden now he's getting 12.
There's a ton of variables here, though, too, that come into play. It's not just the fact that those guys were out. It's also the fact that there is a real rookie learning curve here, too, especially for a guy that's drafted in the 4th round, as Austin said.
Agreed.
So, like, that's something that's going to happen here. We asked about where he's at over the last 5 weeks, second to only Cooper Kupp. So, as you said, Cooper Kupp there, he's been second to points only to Cooper Kupp over the last 5 weeks. Guys, top 25 in targets, even with all those bad games. He's 25th among wide receivers in targets on the year. So again, can I trade him for a piece to get another piece? Like, he is a piece right now for you, based on where you drafted him in your dynasty drafts, based on what you got, like what you're getting out of him at the end of the year. This is part of draft and develop. Now, if you could go and get something, for sure, the hypotheticals that we have, like, we could go and try and get something else. I think, we have to weigh that at each cost, but sometimes you have to just see that you've got somebody that hit and did what he was supposed to do and kind of see where that goes as well, too. Like, it can't always just be like, how do I sell high on this guy right now? Like, sometimes you just have to, sometimes it's about the deals you don't make, and hanging on to the players that are good and showing you enough right now. I think there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, his metrics aren't great, but his burst score is really good, which is what you need in the slot. You need to get quick, outs out. And I think there's some stuff there to really, really like about him on Ross.
Really good hands.
Yeah. Like
you don't need him to make Olympic plays every time. You need him to get to a spot and catch the ball.
I just need him to be peppered with targets. And there's two conflicting things here. Like, Detroit by nature has always done the stupid thing, like drafting Eric Ebron really high and like doing these, dumb things like that they don't necessarily need. So if their logic with Dan Campbell, like I like Dan Campbell, I think he's got these guys playing hard. I think it was a good hire. And I think if they continue down that path of logical hires here and logical moves, then they don't have to like go spend a bunch of money at wide receiver and bring somebody in. Let them on Raw, let Hawkinson, let Swift be the focal points of this offense and go and spend on your line and your defense and try and shore that up. And we'll just see what ends up happening, what they end up doing. But, it's what do you want to bank on, as far as going forward. So I do see some validity in what Johnny's saying. They're like, don't trust in the organization. They're going to bring some, or like Austin, you talked about bring in Randy Moss. You definitely want to bring in maybe an alpha ahead of him, but we're not asking him to be the alpha. I think he can be a rich man's, I think he can be like a Hunter Renfro. Yeah, like that's what I was thinking. Like I think he could end up being like that, like a rich man's Cole Beasley. Some of these guys that last year, some of these guys that end up being focal points of their offense. As Austin, I think that was a good one. Julian Edelman is another good one.
Nightmare on Edelman Street, huh?
I mean, it kind of is on that one. That's what I see. And the last thing I throw out his way is their first win of the season came from a pretty nice touchdown grab Amon-Ra had there in the closing minutes of the game. Yeah. It shows another level of trust. It's not like he's just he's a dude. We go to him in the end. At the end of the game, you don't pick plays, you pick players. And he seems one of the players they're picking, which is nice.
And guys, like how many times did we doubt Cooper Kupp with Jared Goff before we realized that he really loved Jared? Like he really loved Cooper
I actually
Kupp.
think that's probably the best.
Like that's a situation right there where it's like we know we have a history of a quarterback who loves a certain type of player. That player's come and produce. That player's got a ton of volume. There's a lot of up arrows for Amon-Ra St. Brown, and just thinking that we need to go sell him to me is like, hold on, let's take a beat.
And he's done it with multiple not great quarterbacks already.
Yes,
right. I agree. I'm just saying from the perspective, it did make me think. I didn't think about selling him high before. But I think it all depends on like if you go into that argument being like, yo, he's number 2 over the last 4 weeks, and you can kind of get more of like a top 5 value for him, then I think you do it. But again, I agree. I want to look into actually. You made me
like Freak Stomper right here, but you could trade someone who's high on him for a Javonte Williams or something like that. Again, if we're gonna go get if we're gonna go that, like then okay.
Javonte is the number 16 running back right now.
Hold on, yeah, right. So you don't think? Hold on, let me ask you: if you were a person in Dynasty and you had Zeke and Amon, you don't think you could get Javonte for Zeke and Amon in Dynasty? I think you could.
Then go do it. That's what I'm saying.
I'm saying, would you guys do that if you could get a Javonte? I think Javonte is a great person to bring up because
Zeke's an interesting case that we'll have to dissect too further on. But
Javonte's such a tough one to bring up too because Johnny, now you talked about Javonte. Like I think that he is this year's Antonio Gibson now, where if Melvin Gordon is gone next year, Javonte Williams becomes a guy that you're probably seeing go in the second round. Maybe somebody ends up creeping up and taking him at the end of the first because you're like, look, he's so good. Look at all the metrics, broken tackles, elusivity. He was an RB2 last year anyways with Melvin Gordon out touching him. Now it's his show. He's going to be an RB1 top fold. Watch it. So I think
Matt Berry likes to compare him to Cam Akers. Where what we did with Cam Akers on the end of Cam Akers' rookie year, then drafting him pretty high, definitely second round guy. If Gordon's died, well, and he's back now though.
And we're gonna move on from this one here, but I just want to give a shout out to this whole panel here because we were freaking spot on this whole call here. We liked Melvin Gordon. We called him an unsexy, solid running back play who would likely over the course of the season cede some work to Javonte Williams. We weren't on as much work got seeded. Melvin Gordon was, I think, even a little bit better than we thought and held sizable chunks all season long. But we got Melvin Gordon as the RB18. We got Javonte Williams as the RB16 right now.
Well, I thought, Austin, you're spot on. We'll get into some of the flashback stuff in the coming weeks, but I thought you were spot on calling it the date scenario. Like, Javonte's the sexier date, but like you're going to have more fun with Melvin Gordon. And you did more often this year. You had more fun with Melvin Gordon. I also wanted to bring up that like when we were dived into the rookies, Javonte's tape jumped off the page to me.
You guys called him there.
Yeah, I was telling Johnny, man, I really like he was Kamara light. At North Carolina, and I'm just happy it turned out because another guy I liked a lot of film of was Darrell Henderson, and it took him a while, but I think Darrell Henderson flashed a little bit this year too. But it's just a lot of fun. I'm excited to dive into more rookies as the weeks come on.
But
I'm getting chomping at the bit.
Killjoy,
what up, Killjoy?
Man? Won your league this year, but dude. Yeah. Oh my God! You know what? I gotta hit him with my favorite one. I gotta hit him with a Tina dance on there.
Nice. Killjoy also is who set up our stream or our Discord.
Hell
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
shout
Thank
out
you
to him.
again.
Shout out to him. He's a goat.
Shout out.
Shout out. Killjoy. Kansas City Chiefs running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He is out week 18 against the Broncos. Darrell Williams going to find himself in the top 12
Big
for
Darryl.
week 18 on this one. Any hesitation? Firing him up? Get him out there?
No, we like Darryl. He's
Yeah.
been an awesome piece to have if you had him for the first time CH was out, even after CH came back, a little bit of juice there, and he's definitely going to have it as the feature back here. Darrell's going to be an interesting case if CH misses a ton of time here and what happens with them in the playoffs and all that stuff. Like we've long looked to Kansas City over the last few years on what their running backs do in the playoffs to make ADP adjustments the following year. So I'm excited to see how that plays out and where we're going to see, Darrell. I think he might be on a 1-year deal or done off the books after this year. So something to look at there.
Most definitely. Another thing we've been looking at, Johnny, here is Darren Waller, man. Love him. Don't love knee issues.
No.
Remain limited. Thursday's practice. Doesn't look like we're going to be getting any Darren Waller here to close out the year. Josh Jacobs remain limited at Thursday's practice. Been dealing with some ribs issues, dealing with the pain, but he's going to be out there for Sunday. That's the plan right now. Get your Josh Jacobs started with Darren Waller out. You continuing to pound Hunter Renfrow. His cute little booty.
It's cute. Yes. Hunter Renfrow is remaining in your lineup.
So you're going to pound Hunter Renfrow's cute little booty?
Yeah, I'm not going to pound Hunter Renfro's cute little booty.
That language kept. I was talking. It's been the holiday season, and I said it to someone, I'm like, "Yo, we've been pounding Harry Potter this holiday season," and I was like,
"Yeah, I was like
Danny Radcliffe. You're just pounding Danny Radcliffe this holiday season, dude."
Yeah.
I actually just watched the reunion thing on HBO for Harry Potter. Yeah,
that was pretty well done.
Yeah, well, and then it made me want me to watch the movie. So that's
I just got done with all two through 8. We watched. I didn't watch the first one again. Not again, but now I kind of want.
The first one's so bad, dude. I can't get. It's so bad.
I like it. It's so bad. Really?
When they're young, it's bad. And what they did in the review, I thought was funny. They were like trying to hop them up as great child actors in that first one. I'm like, I don't know if I agree with that, dude. Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Potter show here.
Well, that's all right. It's in my book. Moving on here, though, to the Los Angeles Chargers. Not a ton of action over here. But we know that this game, the Chargers and the Raiders won, is going to be flexed over to Sunday night. And it's a big game that we got going over here, especially if we get some Indianapolis losses coming in, as we mentioned earlier, right? Well, God, Whisper Nation, would you like to see the Raiders and the Chargers just kneel it out the entire time? Justin Herbert finishes with minus 60 rushing yards.
You want to know why
that
does not
happen? Because he kneels 60 times?
No, you know why that doesn't happen?
Why doesn't that happen?
Because it doesn't, like, even if they could both get in with kneels, it won't happen because this is a division game and they want to kick their division opponent out. Like, that's why it would be like, you're not going to do that.
Yeah, I think that's more accurate than not. But it's just funny that we can talk about this.
I do think it is funny, though.
Yeah.
But I do, on the other token, though, like, I do think, though, if they were to go into overtime, I think then you could definitely see both the teams.
That's where I think it's interesting as it gets to the end of the fourth quarter. If it's close and overtime, do we see different mind games here? Like, do they just say, you know what, screw it, we're gonna Todd Gurley it to make sure we tie this.
We're just gonna clock suck just in order to get in.
Yeah,
you won't.
They're gonna pound Renfro's little booty and clock suck it out. Dude. That's what they're going for here.
It's gonna be an interesting game to watch when you describe it like that, man. Tune in Sunday night. Top 9 for
NFL After Dark. All right.
Yeah. You can't mock this league.
No,
Moving on over to the Los Angeles Rams. This is pretty exciting here, man. I like this headline. Maybe it is just a bunch of fluff, but I'm gonna say it and enjoy it. Coach Sean McVay said Cam Akers was full speed flying around at Wednesday's practice. Full participant at Wednesday. It sounds like, I know he's been getting hyped up. Sounds like he's going to be out there, and it sounds like they want to use him. It sounds like they want to see what he's about coming into the playoffs. I don't know, man.
How does a running back be all over the field? That's what I want to know. Like that doesn't make any sense.
McVay, man.
Flying around the field.
If he gets any kind of taste of speed, that dude, he is ridiculously like. Remember, Brandon Cooks got traded there, and they were watching him at practice, and he could not shut up about how fast Cooks was. He went to every single assistant. They had him mic'd up. He went to every single. You seen Brandon Cooks? He's so fast. He's flying.
The ghost of Al Davis has
I will say, dude,
climbed up Sean McVay's sweet little booty, and now
I will say, that is an interesting note that you kind of remind.
Look,
is like the Rams they gas up their players so much because
I
remember,
remember
when
look at their coach, man. Look at how excitable Sean McVay is. First of all, he's got a smoking hot wife. Okay. Second of all, he had that dude that just like basically it was his job to keep McVay off of the field. Remember, it was his job to hold him from getting on the field. Like by his he just like, no, come here, you little munchkin, come with me. And he's like, dude, he's a very excitable guy. So I think that plays into the fact
it's in LA, it's SoFi Stadium.
Yeah, like this headline.
Well,
just
do you remember?
He's flying around out there full speed.
Well, do you remember him when Keyshawn Vaughn was like, and they were on Hard Knocks, and bro, they were just like, oh, he's like a mix between Keenan Allen and Brandon Cooks, and like, bro, they were just like super gassing him up, got a little excited about it, and then they did,
man. Tavon Austin, dude.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think Cam Akers coming out, and I've been on record saying this. You guys know this. I don't believe what they're saying. 6 months after an Achilles injury. I'm sorry, Kevin Durant took a year and a half off and then still came back, and he was still a little rusty coming back from that. So I in a much more physical sport, I don't see him flying around the field at all. I see him flying right down to the
Didn't Kevin
ground.
come back a few months after?
How much
and then
of
Kevin
this is
a year and a half off after that?
How much of this is your Cardinals bias coming in here, Johnny? How much of this is you don't want the Rams to have Cam Akers back?
I'm a Cam Akers fan.
He's an Achilles whisperer. His take is on being an Achilles whisperer. No, it's not on being a Cardinals fan.
It has nothing to do with the Cardinals at all. It actually, I like Cam Akers. I want him to do well because I've also got him, and I took him in a keeper league and sat on him all year long because his value was so cheap and because it's an auction. And so I want him to do well because if he kills it, I either have the option of saying, hey, I want to keep him with DeAndre Swift next year, or I could be like, no, I could cash out.
Come in and kill it. Don't you have that option? You'd actually probably maybe prefer him not to come back and get re-injured, right? So
exactly.
If you're having him in a keeper, right? That's that.
Like I said, I expect from now until they're out of the playoffs. I said 20 touches is what I expect to see out of Cam Akers. However many games they play, I expect 20 touches. If he could show me 2 to 3 bursts of breaking through and decent speed on just 2 to 3 of those runs, I will be happy going into next season.
I think he plays this week. I don't know how much he'll play. He has to play for me if I'm the Rams. I want to go see what he has before we get in the playoffs. Yeah. Like I need to go see if he can do it and get up there because I need to know what I have in my running. So much of McVay's offense runs through the running back. They need to know what they have in that table going into the playoffs.
I'll say this. I think it makes a lot of sense for them to actually lean a little bit on Cam Akers. If there's any truth to what they're saying, then he's healthy. He's good. We got to be careful about where he's at, but you're coming into the playoffs and there's a lot of other good teams around you over there in the NFC. And you got a lot of banged up running backs outside of Cam Akers. So if you get like a piece coming in right now that you could actually use and lean on in this playoff run up ahead and setting up a hopeful Super Bowl run, you're going to need Cam Akers. And if he gets re-injured in this game, who cares?
Fully healthy. Who's got a better backfield than the Rams if all three of those guys are going, dude? Like if you've got Cam Akers, Henderson, and Sony Michel, who's got a better backfield in the playoffs right now than that? Maybe Dallas with Tony Pollard and Zeke. Maybe
I may take the Packers if Jones and Dillon are both.
I do like the 1-2 punch there. Chase Edmonds and Connor's another good one.
It's up there. It's a really good one. It's a really good
Elijah Mitchell and Jeff Wilson.
Well, Elijah Mitchell and Deebo Samuel.
And Deebo. Yeah, that's more like it. Elijah and Deebo.
Moving over to another team here where I wanted to talk mainly about the running backs over, and that's the Miami Dolphins. The piece of news here is Duke Johnson saying he has no idea if the Dolphins want to keep him beyond this season. And, easy come, easy go, right? Like this dude showed up out of nowhere, got 20 fantasy points, 20 touches, crazy work. We started him in one of our DFS lineups, and I am just wondering what we think is going to happen, Johnny, with the running back field here. Because Gaskin, a darling in his own right. Easy come, easy go, though, as well. Undrafted player came in. He split a lot of carries. really quick outlook this season. Do you think that one of the running backs here they have holds it down? Malcolm Brown, I'll say, was not activated from the injured reserve thus far, ending his season. Do you think that they keep one of these Brown, Johnson, Gaskin around, or do they try to find somebody in the offseason?
No, I mean, they're getting some work and usage from these guys. So, like, I don't understand why they would. I mean, they've had multiple options over the last 2 off seasons to bring. I mean, there were, if you remember, when Uncle Lenny was originally being shopped around when he was with the Jags, Miami was the guy, or was the team that everyone said, hey, like, these are where the rumors are coming that Uncle Lenny could end up going. And they just end up, I mean, they had so many options that year. They had a lot of draft picks, and they were just like, nope, not going to take one. We're just going to go with undrafted Gaskin. And then this year, same thing. They had a lot of opportunities last year, draft a running back. They were like, nope, we're going to go with the guys that we have that are undrafted or we could pick up. So I generally see when you have an offensive or a team that's ran this way, it would surprise me if they veered off of that. Like it's working for them because obviously, they don't have the best record, but they were winning games. And, this is just, it's funny that Duke comes out and says this because this is exactly what we've been saying. Like, we have no idea.
No,
like, we don't know. Like,
we don't know.
It's Miami.
We're going to keep paying attention, though, and sharing our insights with you, Whisper Nation. So if you haven't already subscribed to the channel and you'd like to be a part of a community where you belong exactly as you are and you like fantasy football, hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you a part of our nation. Moving on here, just quick note, Kirk Cousins activated off the COVID list. He should be back for the Vikings. New York Giants, Kadarius Toney, often out, is going to be out again. Got a shoulder issue. Just make sure you have, if you haven't removed all of your expectations for Toney, do it.
Yeah, I won't lie. I'm kind of excited that this is happening because once again, keeps his value down for next year. He's definitely going to be a guy that's going to be on a sleeper list for me because his upside. So he's going to be a guy that I'll be taking a lot of, 10 rounds plus this year. I believe.
I like that. Just like it's a nice upside pop piece.
Yeah,
like, if it hits, great. If it doesn't, fine. Like in that, like last year's Henry Ruggs, Marquez Callaway, Mike Williams tier.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there.
100% Pittman tier. It's like these guys that had showed flashes didn't maybe meet those expectations, but you saw a somewhat upside there. It's worth taking a dart throw on those kind of guys at the ends of drafts because it could really pay off.
Another guy that I think we might be considering taking some later round upside picks on here is New York Jets running back Michael Carter. Upgraded to full on Thursday. This is shaping up nicely following the concussion protocol for Carter. So I consider him. And dude, I wish Travis was still here, but Braxton Berrios,
dude,
he's been balling, dude. Like, I know they've been having a lot of injuries and weird stuff going on over there, and we've kind of like talked about him in somewhat of a joking fashion. But I want to know, like, Braxton Berrios right now, when we look at the last several weeks, I mean, 21 points last week, 12 targets, 8 catches, touchdown with 65 yards.
Got a touchdown last week.
Yeah. And on the ground, right? In rushing. Yeah. And then, 6 targets week before that, 10 points in week 15 there. He's been involved in the rushing capacity. They've been using him a lot over the field. Inconsistent still, but enough pulling together to put some kind of meaty fantasy days together. Like, is this a fun flash, or is this something to have real consideration towards going against Buffalo here in the season finale?
Well, obviously, if he doesn't go, then because there are some rumors that he might not play in this game. But if it's funny. We're doing
he's on the doubtful side right now.
Yeah, just a little foreshadow of future content that's coming up, Whisper Nation. We're going to be doing like a look back kind of episode. And I was watching some of the videos back, Austin, that we had from last year. And the reason why I bring it up is because in one of the videos that I checked out, we were talking about Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. And in that video, I brought up the fact that there were 3 wide receivers that had like over a 20% hog rate for their team. One of those guys was Antonio Brown. The other guy was Deontay Johnson. And that third guy, which we mentioned in the video, and it's funny because I literally said, I was like, and Big Travis boy, Braxton Berrios is number 3 on that list. So it's just funny because it was like the analytics were showing us, hey, this is a guy, look at him, look. And I just overlooked it. And you're seeing it. So I do think he's going to be, again, another guy that, hey, if you're at the end of next year's draft, you're probably going to pick him up. It's not the sexiest pick ever, but hey, he's going to be used. They use him in this offense. And, but we'll also have to see a little bit Elijah Moore too. There are some moving pieces, but yeah, Braxton Berrios is like, we talk about like a Renfrow is like a poor man's version of it. It's like Braxton Berrios is like a poor man's version of Hunter Renfrow. I feel.
Yeah. And I swear it's not just because he's white, but it's like he reminds me of like an Eric Decker.
Yeah.
Almost on this, another New York Jets, like, dude who like has moments, has plays, but you're like, is he a vein? Like, can he handle that much? Or is he just going to be like a sneaky guy who can come in and make some big plays as long as the defense isn't prioritizing him?
Where do you think Michael Carter goes next year? Because what I was gonna throw out is Michael Carter or Singletary, because I think they're gonna go around in the same area. But I think I would rather have Michael Carter.
Michael Carter is sexier,
but I'll tell you, if Singletary ends up in that goal line,
I think Singletary finishes ahead of Michael Carter next year. But I think that's a really good comp where they're at. I think Michael Carter ends up having like, he has as many sub 4-point days as he does above 25-point days, and it's probably like 3 or 4. Is where I think Singletary's probably a little bit more consistent, just because it's a better team.
Who would you take right now? You're on the clock in 2022. Doesn't matter what round.
Singletary.
You're taking Singletary. I think
I'm Singletary right now.
I think, yeah, I'd probably do.
I want Carter. He's sexier, but I think Carter is like low key sexy. Singletary's low key sexy too.
Oh, I think I've been a somewhat single. Well, not this year. Of course, I came off the bandwagon of Singletary this year, and then but yeah, it'll be interesting if Singletary ends up continuing to get this goal line work. I think I'm with you. I would take Singletary over Carter, but again, if we get more, out of like we did last year in the summer of like, oh, it's going to be split Zach Moss and Singletary again, like 2 years ago. Zach Moss wasn't healthy for the whole year. Then it's like, I think I'd rather take Carter in that case, just to.
Yeah. I think it's a good comp too there too. It'd be fun to keep that one going here. Just this comment here earlier from Freak Stomper. Miami should take an early running back. We've talked about this before. I don't think early, but like,
so excited.
Like a 3rd round running back. Like if you can get one guy who fell and somebody you're excited about. And our boy Dokes, dude, picked him up in like the 5th round of Dynasty. Didn't work out.
I was so pissed when you got him.
I know you were. I loved it.
I was glad. I was glad for that fact that it didn't work out. But yeah, he's interesting.
Moving over to the Philadelphia Eagles. It looks like you're going to be firing up more of Boston Scott because Miles Sanders is going to be out. Jordan Howard is still around, but 11 carries for 26 yards versus Boston Scott's 14 carries for 47 and 2 touchdowns for Boston Scott. It looks like that's the play to prioritize this week. Yeah, Johnny? Boston Scott?
Yeah, Boston Scott.
All right. So we've got now the Pittsburgh Steelers. Deontay Johnson's been activated from the COVID list. Love to see that. Najee Harris doing his thing. Pat Freiermuth came back in, 5 of 6 targets, 22 yards, didn't get that touchdown. I think it's just business as usual now over there in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
In San Francisco, quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo remained limited, dealing with a thumb. We've got Elijah Mitchell. He's got a knee issue, but he returned to practice on Thursday, officially limited. Looks like they're kind of just load managing their number 1 back here. Looks like he's going to be in there playing. We can't going just really quickly back here to Jimmy G. We're going to we would like to see a full practice or to get a little bit more tip of the hat from the coaching side. I mean, this could be a notable play. Trey Lance is a hot pickup. If he is fully started, do you have any leanings on the San Francisco quarterback situation this week?
Yeah, I don't think that they're going to go back to Jimmy. I think they're going to continue to roll out.
Okay.
I just think I don't think, I'll be honest, I don't know if Jimmy G plays again for the 49ers.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some potential. Maybe if like if Lance goes out in this game, really struggles, but they end up winning to, get a playoff position. But he struggles, that it might be a little bit more pushing to get Jimmy G back over rolling out Lance in that playoff game. But again, I would be a little bit surprised if Jimmy G plays again, unless they get super deep into the playoffs.
I think that's a fair take.
Yeah.
Moving here now to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, they're just getting so messed up, dude. We obviously had all of the Antonio Brown news that came out. He's not going to be with the team. We know Chris Godwin's out. We know Mike Evans is recovering. We know Gronk is doing the same. Notably, Ronald Jones is dealing with an ankle. He's out for week 18. Him and Leonard Fournette, they're hoping will be ready for a postseason run. But this is going to leave the ground game to Le'Veon Bell and Keyshawn Vaughn on this. How would you stack this, Johnny?
I mean, Keyshawn Vaughn, they're saying, should get the early down work, and then you should see Le'Veon get the receiving work. So, I don't feel great about either one of these guys because they're probably going to both cut in, and they're against Carolina. Not the greatest matchup for you, but yeah, I think if I had to roll out one, it would be Keyshawn Vaughn. Just because I think that's a little bit safer workload. But again, it could be a frustrating situation if you're relying on one of these two guys.
Yeah, no doubt. And now moving over to another, I guess it's a bit of a frustrating situation, but I think it's turning into a bit of a neat story here as well. And that's the Tennessee Titans. Dude, Mike Vrabel needs to get more consideration for Coach of the Year. I'm just going to say it right now. If you lose Derrick Henry and you're the Titans and you've still been maintaining a near number 1 AFC seed, like, kudos to you, man. And we're talking about Deonta Foreman, who's come out of nowhere and kicked ass. We're talking about such a depleted wide receiver core. We're talking about a Ryan Tannehill who, I mean, he's all right, but
Derrick Henry's supposed to be back this week.
Well, that's what I was going to say, too. I wanted to just give Mike Vrabel a bit of a shout out because he's been able to hold it down with Derrick Henry being done, who was like an MVP candidate again. And now we get Derrick Henry coming back for the Titans. This obviously isn't going to be making big fantasy impact. Like I don't think he comes back this week and plays. So even if you've got a championship game coming this week, I mean, stay tuned to see if Derrick Henry is going to be active. It does look like he's going to be active though for the NFL. So this isn't so much of a fantasy point, but just more of a NFL point. And you got to be excited for Derrick Henry though, at least looking forward to next season. Hopefully he doesn't re-injure. Hopefully he comes in and smashes. We'll see.
Derrick Henry is the RB12 right now in standard, the RB17 in PPR, and he only played in 8 games, half of the season. That is wild,
right?
He was beyond, and it's crazy.
Especially 2021,
dude. You look at like because I was looking at like just overall player standings right now, or rankings where they finished. So it's like Jonathan Taylor is 60 points and a half PPR ahead of the next highest person, which is Austin Eckler, right? So Jonathan Taylor has 342 fantasy points. It's just like Derrick. So I was like, oh, where's Derrick Henry on? Like Derrick Henry scored 100 and I just lost his name. And then I was like, oh, where'd it go? Now I lost my point. Or where is it? Okay, 186 fantasy points, Austin, in 8 weeks. Like there's a lot of ifs here, but if you're talking about Henry playing all 16, there's seriously a very big chance that it would have been like Derrick Henry was, above 400 fantasy points, and then there's like a huge gap. Then there's Jonathan Taylor. Then there's another huge gap, and then there's Austin Eckler. It would have been wild to see that. And it also goes to show just how much Derrick Henry was tearing up the league.
Dude, I know.
Still RB12 after missing 8 games.
Just a different. You don't see it. It's a different human. It's a different category. It's a varsity player playing the JV. Like it was.
Yeah, it's just like when you get. It's like when you get on Madden when they come out with the scary players during Halloween, and they're so much bigger than all the other players. That's what Derrick Henry's like.
Freak Stomper with a good point here, butting up a little against yours, Johnny. A little controversy, possibly. I love it. Everything Jimmy has said points to him playing. I wouldn't expect anything different come from Jimmy. What do we think about the rest of the team, though? Freak Stomper says the whole team says they can't tell anything's wrong. Plus, Jimmy has beaten the Lambs 5 straight games. I'd bet $100 he plays. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
we'll see how this one plays out. Trey Lance is their future.
Yeah, he's got a grade 3 UCL sprain and fracture to the right thumb. I don't know. I mean, I do think that he's probably better off, or the team is better off with Jimmy G. But again, like I don't know. It'll be something to monitor. But do I expect Jimmy G to play?
Do the 49ers have any chance of postseason life in this one?
Yeah, they're in. But if they're in, if they need to beat the Rams.
Okay. So this is a pretty big one.
Actually,
I can't wait to see what happens here then.
They actually might be locked up, actually.
Are they?
Niners.
I should know this. But I don't.
Sometimes I get so caught up in like all this other information that I forgot. Like I forget standings. But I'm pretty. If I'm not mistaken, playoffs.
2021 playoff picture has.
Yeah, so they're saying the 49ers have a 65% chance to make the playoffs right now.
So they're going up against the Rams, and it would be the Saints or the Falcons or the Saints behind them.
Yeah. So
they're in a good. No, they're in the hunt. So they're not there yet, right? They would need something to happen to the Eagles. Do they need the Eagles to lose and they to win?
Yeah, I'm looking up.
Okay.
This didn't even.
Here it is. Freak Stompers got us in if we win or the Saints lose. Okay.
Yeah,
so they need to win this game. This is huge. Actually, I'm curious now to watch what happens with Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo, because this is like all the marbles. It sounds like both guys could play if you need them. Who do you really want to go to? I can't wait to see what happens. And we will be there with you, Whisper Nation, seeing this game and watching what happens. And God, I can't wait to talk about all the fantasy implications with Johnny.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Well, we got all the way through all of the news and notes. The last thing I would just say is Antonio Gibson is not listed on the fantasy or on the Washington football team's Week 18 injury report. You like to see that. Ricky Seals-Jones got a concussion. He's going to be out for Week 18. Curtis Samuel, he remains sidelined for Thursday's practice. Regardless, Curtis Samuel's not a recommended starter. I hope he can get healthy and get active next year, because he is a real talent and he's a fun one at that. And it's kind of been a bummer that he's had this lost season. But prayers up for Curtis Samuel. Prayers up for the entire Washington football team. They need it. Get Terry McLaurin a quarterback. You guys could do something pretty darn cool over there if you do. Johnny, I think we've got all of the questions here answered as well. Not a ton of lineup questions here, which means you guys are running your leagues in the right fashion, which means you're not going to be playing your championship game in the very, very last game of the season. Try to have your championship game in the penultimate game. That's the second to last game of the NFL season. You get to avoid a lot of this weirdness, resting players, and stuff like that.
But, and then also, not only that, but then you guys can join us, because we aren't stopped. We're going to be filling out on Monday. We are doing a playoff playoff best ball.
Yeah.
So we'll be drafting our players for the playoffs and be playing out that on a best ball. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. So do it with us.
It's gonna be awesome.
That'll be on Underdog. We'll be doing that through Underdog. So if you're not on Underdog, go sign up for Underdog.
And what's the promo code for Underdog?
TFW.
TFW.
For a 20% bonus for signing up.
No, I'm really. This is obviously a promo pitch on this one at the end, but it is such a great partner that we have with Underdog, because it is a fun ass platform where we get to go ahead and build this bet slip, build this best ball tournament with you guys and play with you guys and have real money on the line, and we get to draft on air, and it's super, super fun, and the platform is really intuitive and a fun time to use. So I'd encourage you to go download on your iOS or Android device Underdog Fantasy. Use the promo code TFW, just 3 letters, TFW, and you get a 20% bonus. So you put in $100, you get $120 right away. And then on Monday, we'll be going ahead and drafting that playoff best ball tournament.
Dude, that's going to be a lot of fun.
Ramos, happy Friday, my dude.
Happy Friday.
And with that, man, we are through all of the news and notes. I hope you have a great, great weekend. I hope it's been a solid start to the new year for you, Whisper Nation. I hope you win your championships. If you don't, I hope you still had a great time, and make sure you join us for the rest of the offseason, then preseason, then in-season content coming your way all season long from the Fantasy Whispers.
Next year's championship run starts now. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. If you haven't, you made it this far, hit that subscribe. You won't.
That's Johnny Game Time Hicks. I'm Austin Sear. We're the Fantasy Whispers. We're out of here. Peace.
Right here.
Look at you go. You made it to the end of another one of our videos. Hey, if you still have some questions, I totally understand. Or you just want to join an awesome fantasy football community, head on over to our Discord chat. Link is in the description below. And if you're still not sold on us, check out one of these videos.